New Nordic.
In Valencia, Spain, which experienced deadly heavy flooding last week, the rain has returned.
More storms in eastern Spain have suspended commuter rail service now in Barcelona. The extreme rainfall in Valencia last week left more than 200 people dead and scores more still missing. Angry survivors, upset over the lack of, they say, response, hurled mud at the King and Queen of Spain and the Prime Minister, who visited one town over the weekend.
ABC's Sherry Preston. Israel's parliament following through with their threats to remove members of the United Nations Relief Workers Agency, or UNRWA, out of Gaza, voting them out of the group, citing their supposed ties to Hamas. But workers on the ground say this move will create a dire, desperate situation in Gaza.
We heard from UNRWA saying that Israel's ban on its operations would lead to the collapse of the humanitarian crisis, which is already in a dire condition in the Gaza Strip. UNRWA saying that it is the backbone of operations in Gaza. Other agencies calling the alarm too.
ABC's Britt Clennett in Tel Aviv. Federal wildlife officials in New Jersey are investigating the butchered remains of a dolphin discovered on a beach north of Asbury Park over the weekend. The Marine Mammals Stranding Center said that the animal's flesh appears to have been completely removed with clean cuts from a sharp instrument. Chuck Sievertson, ABC News.
Oh, no. Stomach issues again?
Stomach issues?
Who are you?
Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KVNU.
I'm Gil Walter, KVNU News. A 35-year-old Newton man is behind bars awaiting arraignment on allegations of strangling a woman at a North Logan restaurant, according to law enforcement. Derek Villanueva was arrested October 31st after the alleged victim claimed he had showed up at her job and assaulted her. According to the arrest affidavit, North Park police officers were called to the restaurant on a report of domestic violence. The alleged victim claimed Villanueva went to her place of work and began strangling her. The woman, who claimed to have been in a relationship with Villanueva, said the suspect began strangling her until she was able to pound on a wall and get the attention of employees in a neighboring business. When an individual came to help, Villanueva fled the area. Police reported the alleged victim had marks on her neck and throat. She also told them that Villanueva had allegedly strangled her several times in the past day. According to jail records, Villanueva was booked on suspicion of aggravated assault and domestic violence. He is being held temporarily without bail. A malfunction delayed the demolition of the farmers' grain silos in Ogden Saturday morning. While the first of two planned demolitions on November 2nd was successful, the second was postponed by over an hour. An Ogden City spokesperson told KUTV that debris from the first tower's demolition severed a wire connected to the explosives prepared for the second tower, preventing it from collapsing. Crews entered the demolition site to rewire the explosives, and the second tower was imploded at around 9:15 a.m. All street closures in the area related to the demolition were lifted by 9:30 a.m. As of now, landowners have not announced plans for what will replace the silos. Election Day is tomorrow, and there are resources available for people who might face challenges at the polls. The ACLU of Idaho has created a guide for people who are unsure of their right to vote, such as people with criminal convictions and people experiencing homelessness. Rebecca DeLeon of the organization says it creates a new guide every year to reflect changes in the law. She further explains that there are big changes this year.
University students can no longer use their student ID to register to vote. And another big change has been transgender people now have a harder time changing their gender marker and updating their identification so that it looks like them.
DeLeon points out that people with disabilities have the right to access their local polling place.
Each polling place should be prepared to accommodate for anybody with disabilities, whether it be visual or auditory, whether you use a wheelchair. All of the polling places should be accessible.
DeLeon also adds that people convicted of a misdemeanor never lose their right to vote in Idaho, and people with felony convictions have their right to vote automatically restored once they have completed their sentences, even when they are on parole or probation. She mentions that homeless people can also vote and indicates there are easy ways to register.
If you are homeless, you can use a shelter that you frequent. You can use that address as your address. And if there is not a shelter that you frequent, you can actually also just put the cross streets where you normally sleep. That is acceptable as well.
People can still register at their polling place on Election Day. The ACLU of Idaho's Election Day hotline will be open from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Mountain Time. KVNU weather brought to you by Matt Robbins with Quality First Insurance. He has access to many insurance carriers and will give you options to protect your business. Give your insurance package a fresh look. Quality First Insurance, 752-0101. Snow showers likely tonight, mainly between 8 p.m. and 5 a.m. Overnight low in the mid-20s, and then snow showers mainly before 5 p.m. on Tuesday. High temperature in the upper 30s. New snow accumulation of less than half an inch possible. And then mostly sunny, close to 40 on Wednesday. Get more news at CashValleyDaily.com.
Hi, I'm Dr. Keith Nelson, board-certified, fellowship-trained orthopedic surgeon, and I want to restore your active, pain-free life. I've been an innovator in the treatment of knee pain caused by arthritis and sports injuries for 27 years. I'm the only surgeon in northern Utah to offer Omnibotics, a robotic-assisted knee replacement for your arthritic knee, which has a 97% patient satisfaction rate. Don't live with your knee pain another day. Visit drkeithnelsonortho.com. That's drkeithnelsonortho.com.
Updates every 30 minutes and breaking news as it happens. News Talk KVNU, your number one radio station for news and talk.
After 30 years of dedicated service to Cache Valley and the surrounding areas, Cache Valley Ear, Nose, and Throat announced the retirement of Dr. Jeffrey Benyon. Dr. Benyon knew his patients and treated each one with exceptional skill and passion. Dr. Benyon has been an invaluable asset, provider, surgeon, and friend to the Cache Valley Ear, Nose, and Throat team and the thousands of patients he cared for. As they bid farewell to Dr. Benyon, they're pleased to welcome Dr. Jackson Deere to the Cache Valley ENT team. Dr. Deere, along with Drs. Blotter and Robinette, continue the tradition of providing exceptional care. Supported by their dedicated PAs, Lindsay Humes, Jamie Grange, Brock Olson, and Bailey Bergen, and locations in Logan, Providence, Tremonton, Preston, and Montpelier, the team at Cache Valley ENT remains committed to meeting all your ear, nose, and throat care needs. Cache Valley Ear, Nose, and Throat express their deepest gratitude to Dr. Benyon for his 3 decades of service and look forward to continuing his legacy of excellence with Dr. Deere and the entire Cache Valley ENT team.
I'm Larry Gelwicks, the getaway guru with Morris Columbus Travel and Royal Caribbean Cruise Line. The Ovation of the Seas cruise ship is coming to the West Coast with new Mexican Riviera itineraries sailing from Los Angeles. Enjoy huge discounts off your cruise fare when you book your next Royal Caribbean cruise with Morris Columbus Travel.
Come on and get away, Morris Columbus.
KVNU's For the People with Jason Williams and Bill Walter.
And it is Utah known as the fraud capital of the world. Not because we have more people committing fraud, but because we have so many people falling for it.
Going beneath the headlines and connecting you to the newsmakers.
The radio is a great way to get the word out to a lot of people in an emergency. So we thank you for your help and being a partner with us.
For the People on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM, 102.1 FM, online at 610kvnu.com and on the KVNU mobile app.
Welcome to KVNU's For the People. It is Monday, November 4th. One day to Election Day. And I think everybody is ready for this to come to an end. And unlike last time, I hope whatever happens tomorrow on the national stage, that it is the end. And we all get a break from the drama and the circus and the perpetual campaigning. They never stop anymore. So that's my hope. But we'll see what happens. Here in Utah, we've got a couple of different election updates for everyone, and an op-ed that was posted over the weekend to Deseret News website by former Governor Gary Herbert with a plea to Utahns that, in short, is the former governor asking Utahns not to jump on the election denial bandwagon. We'll talk about specifically what he has to say and why he felt compelled to write this op-ed later on this hour. Good friends from Bragg joining us, Sean Milne, Jess Lucero, and the USU student Peyton, I've forgotten his name, Reynolds. Peyton Reynolds will be joining us in hour two. There is a survey that's going to be going around soon, and we'll find out exactly when you can expect this and participate in it. But this is, in short, Bragg contracting with USU to do some community surveying on housing attainment. What they want to do is get opinions and experiences, actual lived experiences from residents of Cache Valley on trying to rent an apartment, trying to rent a house, trying to buy a house, trying to sell a house. And hopefully from those experiences, they can then learn what policy, if any, I should say, would be helpful, whether that be policy from the state legislature down or whether that be zoning changes at the city level, things the county might even be able to do. They want to know what helps and what hurts as well. So, and I'll spoil that one for you. Some of the zoning rules hurt, but the legislature shouldn't take over those zoning decisions from the cities, which the legislature is considering doing again. This will all be part of an ongoing effort to get the pulse, if you will, of Cache Valley. So Jess Lucero, Peyton Reynolds, USU student who will be heading up the logistics of the survey, and Sean Milne of Bragg will be joining us in hour two of today's show. So be sure to listen to that. This is one that I hope everyone in Cache Valley who's had recent experience in the last year or two, buying or selling a home, renting an apartment, renting a home, trying to, as a landlord, rent a home or an apartment, opportunity for everybody to share their stories and influence public policy going forward. So very cool stuff. Final election update this morning from the Utah Elections Office. Lieutenant Governor Deidre Henderson posting an update. Now, she doesn't do this herself. If you followed the election, they did this, the Cox-Henderson team did this when they ran the first time as well. And then, and she wasn't lieutenant governor at the time, but then for re-election, they actually, Henderson wasn't lieutenant governor at the time, but Cox was. And so they brought in former lieutenant governor and retired guy trying to relax, as I understand it when I last spoke to him, Greg Bell. He was a longtime Republican lawmaker in the Utah House, and then he served at least 2 terms. I want to say maybe he extended into another governor. I'm not sure about that, but he was a lieutenant governor for a while. And then he retired and said, I'm done with this. I'm ready to go enjoy. I think his exact words were, I'm ready to go enjoy being old. And he left, but then they brought him back. So when Cox and Henderson ran the first go-round, they had Greg Bell take over the elections office because Henderson would be on the ballot. Cox would be on the ballot. He was lieutenant governor at the time, remember, for Governor Gary Herbert. Now, this time around, same scenario, but a bit different in the name. This time, Lieutenant Governor Henderson is on the ballot with Cox, part of that same ticket. So they brought Greg Bell in again, and he oversees the elections office. But the lieutenant governor is almost a figurehead when it comes to elections and the elections office, because the whole show is actually run by Ryan Calley, who's been here on the show several times over the years. Very fun guy, and an Aggie, I should point out. And he oversees a team of hundreds of people who run the state elections office, coordinate with county clerks, and also help out during municipal races. So a big team there, and they know what they're doing. They have a near perfect track record. And so Lieutenant Governor Henderson is posting these updates, but the numbers and the bean counting have been put together by the actual elections team. So here's your update. Final update of the election from the Utah Elections Office. As of this morning, 828,976 ballots have been processed. And again, as we've discussed before, what processed means, there's actually an amazing video that the Deseret News put together. They actually went into a public tour and got permission to film some video of, and this was before ballots were out, so these were fake ballots, these were blank ballots, but they ran these blank ballots through the machines and filmed it to show you what processing means, and it's fascinating. But short version is the ballots are scanned and processed to a point, and then they are stored securely and they sit and wait. No ballot counting. Now, the machines scan and tabulate, but it is actually against the law in Utah for anyone to actually, I don't know if this is a button that you click on a screen or a button you click on the side of the machine or what, but no one can actually legally, and the penalties for doing so are pretty nasty, tabulate vote counts until polls close tomorrow night at 8 p.m. When that happens, as soon as polls close at 8 p.m., they hit that button or click that button, and the actual counting of those processed ballots starts. So I hope that makes sense. Again, if you want to see this actually in person, sort of, I'll link to this video on our Facebook page. I haven't put it there yet, but I'll put it up tonight, and you can check it out. So 828,976 ballots have been processed. That's 46.2% of the ballots out there. That is big. That for a state in which so many races are, let's be honest, kind of predetermined. Well, we know what's going to happen in so many races, or at least you would be willing to be a big mouth and bet your reputation on it at work with confidence, right? How certain races are going to turn out. Despite that, 46.2% have already cast a ballot, either through a drop box or most of them are coming in via mail, by the way. In fact, it's to break down, I did some quick number crunching myself before the show, and about 82% of that 828,000 plus have been mailed back in. I'm sorry, 89%. About 89% have been mailed in, and just under 11% have been dropped off either during early voting or at a drop box or both, because a lot of people are using the 24/7 that drop box locations that happened during early voting, which wrapped up Friday. There are still 24/7 drop boxes out there. The Cache County Clerk's Office has a map, but you don't really need a map. They are at every city hall in the valley. I guarantee you live close to a city hall, either today or tomorrow. Just drive through and drop it off. It's easy. It's what I did. So you can also mail your ballot, but at this point today, at this time of day on the deadline to mail your ballot, you are taking a bit of a risk. It's something the U.S. Post Office controls, not Utah. But if you drop your ballot in one of those, say you've got a one of those roadside mailboxes and it says pickup time is 4:30 or 5:30, if that is picked up and your ballot goes to the immediately inside that post office and gets postmarked, you're good to go. You've got a November 4th postmark, right? If your ballot happens to end up on a truck and go to Salt Lake, which does happen, I'm not sure what percentage of our mail that is or when that decision is made. My understanding is it's based off of pickup location and time, but that may have changed since I was last told that. If it goes to Salt Lake, there's a chance your ballot isn't scanned until 12:01 a.m. So your postmark, though you put it in today, your postmark wouldn't be until 12:01 a.m. So at this time of day, if you were planning to mail your ballot but haven't yet, I would say the safest bet at this point, and I don't want to discourage anyone from voting in any way. If mail is your only option, take the risk. That's better than not voting at all. But somewhere near you is a city hall with a drop box. They'll be open all day tomorrow as well until 8 p.m. And you can drop your ballot in there at 7:59 p.m. As long as you were in line before 8 p.m., even if it's in line in a car, you'll be able to drop your ballot off before they lock that box. They have to legally cut that off at 8 p.m. But if there's 2 or 3 cars sitting in a drop box and it's 7:59, those 2 or 3 cars will get to come through and drop their ballots in before they lock it. So again, your safest bet this time of day on the cutoff for postmarking your ballot, I would say drive by a drop box. Most of you are going to pass one tonight. If not, you live near one for tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon. You have until 8 p.m. tomorrow. So there's really no excuse. If you filled out your ballot or if you haven't yet and you fill it out quickly, you've got until from now to 8 p.m. tomorrow night to drop it off in a drop box. And I don't want to scare anyone. If you mailed your ballot today, even if it was late in the day, like 3, 4, your ballot's probably going to be fine. But this is coming up because an issue came up in the Utah's 3rd Congressional District race. And that was led to a lawsuit over about 300 ballots that were in Washington County. Instead of being postmarked in Washington County, they were sent to Vegas by the U.S. Postal Service and then back for delivery. But the problem is when they got to Vegas, they ended up with a post 12:01 a.m. Postmark, even though they were dropped in the mail in time here in Utah, because they went to Vegas and sat in a warehouse all night. When they were finally scanned, they got a postmark of the day of the election, which means that ballot is late. Postmark rules, and so the 300 and some odd ballots didn't get counted, and that race was decided by about 800 ballots, I think, in the end, after all the audits were done. So it's a pretty big deal. So the rule says as long as it's postmarked today, you're good to go. But if you don't want to risk it, one other option you have, and you have about 36 minutes to do this, but if you're out driving right now and you panic and you're not comfortable using a drop box, go to the post office, walk inside, hand it to a human being. Make sure you get today's postmark. You're good to go. Even if after you get today's postmark, your ballot then still goes to Salt Lake and doesn't make it back to Cache Valley until Wednesday, doesn't matter. They keep collecting and counting ballots that come in through mail, and as long as the postmark says it was mailed today, that ballot will be counted. So there's your election update. On the other side, an op-ed from Governor Gary Herbert pleading with Utahns not to jump on the election denial bandwagon. Why the former governor is asking this and why now. We'll talk about what he wrote in this op-ed right after this.
Presented by Coppins Hallmark. This Friday and Saturday at the Riverwoods Conference Center, plan on kicking off your holiday shopping with unique and fun ideas for the entire family. Clothing, books, jewelry, purses, home and holiday decor, baby items, and don't miss everyone's favorite guest, Santa. Ho, ho, ho. The Logan Holiday Gift Show, presented by Coppins Hallmark, is this Friday and Saturday at the Riverwoods Conference Center. Start your holiday shopping off right.
Merry Christmas. Disasters don't wait for a convenient time. When the unexpected strikes, call the trusted team at Blue Sky. Remember, Blue Sky is that same great ARS team you know and trust.
This is Tom with Blue Sky Restoration. When disaster strikes, whether it's a flood, fire, mold damage, or an unforeseen accident, Blue Sky will clean up, repair, and restore your home or business like it was before. No disaster is too big or too small. For all your restoration needs, you can trust our Blue Sky team.
Thanks to our amazing customer and team, Los Primos Restaurant is the Golden and Silver winner for cheap eats, lunch spot, Mexican food, and all-around restaurants. And 2024, Best of Nova Utah, we appreciate your support. Thank you.
Hi, it's Olivia Munn with my shelter pets, Frankie and Chance, reminding you that when you adopt a shelter pet, you discover all the things that make them unique. Adopt pure love at theshelterpetproject.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the Humane Society of the United States, and Maddie's Fund.
Election Day is almost here.
Together, we will fight, fight, fight.
And together, we will win.
I'm ABC's Alex Stone. Join me, along with my colleagues, White House correspondent Karen Travers, national correspondent Stephen Portnoy, and our team of reporters and analysts fanned out across the country as we break down the results state by state and race by race. Tuesday night, your voice, your vote, Election Night 2024. Listen for it right here.
National, state, and local election coverage begins at 6 on News Talk KVNU.
Former Governor Gary Herbert, in an op-ed over the weekend, asking Utahns to, quote, pledge to accept the election results now, regardless of what happens tomorrow. The governor writes, in 2000, 2016, and 2020, groups from various political backgrounds contested the election results. Each one of their claims of widespread fraud in the elections, rigging, or outsized foreign influence has been discredited. Election denialism isn't new, but always it's individuals and groups seeking to promote themselves or their groups or to fundraise off of sowing doubts and promoting false theories that challenge the results of the elections. Former Governor Herbert writes, I believe that here in Utah, we should be an example. We should be better than this. He says, further on in the op-ed, he says, elections are tough. They're not easy on those who run. Take it from me. They're not easy on those who have to decide and vote. But as citizens of the best state in the best country in the world, we have an obligation to uphold election outcomes, respect the institutions and the processes, no matter who wins. He goes on. This is interesting. He says, as a former county commissioner, which I'd forgotten, former Governor Gary Herbert says, as a former county commissioner, governor, and before that lieutenant governor, I was honored to oversee the administration of dozens of elections in our state. On November 5th, we will elect many of our fellow Utahns into high offices on both the county, state, and federal levels. We'll also elect our next president. Now that we have endured the heat of the campaign season, I'd like to pause and take a moment to provide some suggestions for how we, the people, ought to finish this election season off. And he wraps up saying, the state of Utah, which has been referred to as the brightest star on the American flag, conducts our elections professionally and nearly without flaw. We're fortunate to have safeguards and systems in place that ensure election results are reliable at both the local and state level. I believe in the system because I know many of the people who are responsible for running the system, and they are good people. They do hard work, and they do it well. The governor says, I directed, so he has this institute at Utah Valley University now, and he said he directed his team there to answer a couple of questions. And the questions were, are our elections secure? Can we trust the election system? And are voting numbers accurate? He says, after extensive review and research on the issue, the report concluded we are fortunate not only to live in a state, but in a nation where we can say with confidence that our votes count, but not only that the process for tabulating those votes is safe and secure. Election denialism has no supporting evidence, the governor writes. I urge you to make your voice heard by voting, and I urge you to be peacefully and respectfully accepting of the results of the election, no matter what happens. If you want to read the whole thing, I've skimmed it there. It was a lengthy op-ed from the governor, obviously something he feels passionately about, and I've linked to it on our Facebook page. All right, we'll be back with more of KVNU's For the People, and a reminder, Jess Lucero, Sean Milne from Bragg, and Peyton, I've forgotten his last name again, USU student Peyton Reynolds, they're going to be joining us in hour 2 to talk about an upcoming survey you'll have a chance to be a part of. This is a housing attainment survey. They want to talk to anyone who has tried to rent or rent out a home or an apartment, anyone who's tried to buy or sell a home, landlords, renters, homeowners, anyone with a story to tell about housing and how hard or easy it was to attain housing in Cache Valley over the last couple of years. They want to hear from you. They want to do this survey. Bragg is contracted with USU as a way to collect information and turn these stories into something that Mr. Lucero says will better inform public policy. They'll be with us in hour 2 to talk about that and how you can participate. We'll be back with more of hour 1 of today's show, though, after this look at the news with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News is brought to you by Roof Rescue. Nature lovers held a vigil for a famous female grizzly bear that delighted visitors for decades in Wyoming's Grand Teton National Park. after she was struck and killed by a vehicle. Officials say the Grizzly, known as number 399, was hit October 22nd south of the picturesque ski town of Jackson. She was beloved by nature photographers, wildlife enthusiasts, and other park visitors. Dozens braved frigid weather in Jackson Hole Saturday night to attend a candlelight vigil, watched by some 1,300 others online. At age 28, the bear was the oldest reproducing female grizzly in the Yellowstone ecosystem. The Chicago Bulls take on the Utah Jazz in out-of-conference play tonight. It's in the first this season for the teams. Chicago is 1-1 at home. Utah is 0-2 on the road. In fact, the Jazz are still trying for their first win of the season, 0-5. And also, Brett Howden deked Alexander Kerfoot, skated to the front of the net and scored at 2:15 of overtime to keep the Vegas Golden Knights perfect at home with a 4-3 victory over the Utah Hockey Club on Saturday night. UHC is at Winnipeg on Tuesday. KVNU weather brought to you by Cardall's Insulation. If your home is older, like built before 1980, you should consider updating your insulation. Today's insulation is superior to what you'll find in older homes. For a warmer, quieter home this winter, call 755-5012. Snow showers likely tonight, mainly between 8 p.m. and 5 a.m., increasing clouds low in the mid-20s, and then snow showers mainly before 5 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. High temperature in the upper 30s. New snow accumulation less than half an inch possible. Get more news at CashValleyDaily.com.
This is a special report from ABC News. Your voice, your vote. I'm Chuck Sievertson. Both candidates still crisscrossing the country in their final hours before Election Day, with both former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris. Trump earlier in Reading, Pennsylvania, said that if they win Pennsylvania, if they win it, he said, we will win the whole ball of wax. It's all over. Election officials in battleground Arizona held a news conference to reassure voters that come what may tomorrow, when the polls open at 6 a.m. local time, they are up to the challenge. They say that they are ready, they have the resources that they need, that they have a great team that is well-trained and ready for a very successful Election Day tomorrow. The $1 million a day voter giveaways and swing states prize that Elon Musk's Political Action Committee is hosting in swing states can continue through tomorrow, says a Philadelphia judge. This is ABC News.
Roof Rescue is your local roof specialist, dedicated to keeping your home safe and dry no matter the weather. Their team of experienced roofers is here to serve you, providing top-quality service at affordable prices. From minor repairs to complete roof replacements, they've got you covered. Remember, your roof is your first line of defense in protecting your family from the elements. So don't wait until the next storm to discover your roof problems. Call Roof Rescue today at 435-999-4268. They're your trusted local roofing experts, here to keep your home safe and dry. Roof Rescue, celebrating 10 years of providing watertight peace of mind.
This is Tron Arnold of Edward Jones, bringing the daily financial market report for November 4th, 2024. Major equity markets were mostly lower on Monday, with all eyes on the November 5th U.S. presidential election. From a leadership standpoint, energy was a standout, gaining over 1.5%, reflecting strength in oil prices, while most other sectors were closed flat to lower. Overseas, Asian and European markets were mostly higher overnight. After a sharp run higher in recent weeks, bond yields finished lower, with the 10-year Treasury yield ticking down to 4.3%. In the commodity space, oil prices were higher by about 3% following an OPEC Plus decision to delay a planned production increase by 1 month. Elevated geopolitical tensions in the Middle East played a role in higher oil prices as well, with reports surfacing over the weekend that Iran is planning a retaliatory response to Israel's late October airstrike. Today, the markets were closed lower, with the Dow closing down 258 points at 41,795. The Nasdaq was down 60 points at 18,180, and the S&P was down 16 points at 5,713. The bond market 10-year Treasury yields trading at 4.3%, which is 0.08 percentage points lower. In stocks of local interest, Autoliv was down 20 cents, closing at 94.97. Chevron is up 90 cents. At $157.97. Home Depot is up $2.98 at $395.57. Kroger is down 30 cents at $56.27. Nucor was down 96 cents at $142.60. Walmart was up 26 cents at $82.45, and Meta was down $6.48, closing at $560.68 a share. In commodity markets, the spot price of oil was up $2.12, closing at $71.61, and the spot price of gold was down $3.20 at $2,746. This has been today's financial market report, brought to you by Edward Jones and Tron Arnold, member SIPC, serving individual investors with personalized attention and long-term financial advice at 135 North Main in Logan. If you want more information, feel free to reach out at 435-753-2915.
Hi, my name is Linda Christiansen, the County Clerk for Sanpete County. You might be wondering, is Utah's ballot process safe? The answer is yes. From signature verification to tabulation and storage, each ballot received is always handled by a minimum of 2 certified election officials for ballot processing. If you want to learn more about Utah election security, visit vote.utah.gov.
Everyone has been asking me, hey radio guy, what's the forecast for winter? Well, spoiler alert, it's going to be cold, but there is something you can do. Call Cardall's Insulation. With better insulation, you'll be amazed at how much warmer your home is. Get this, as much as 35% of your home's heat is lost through your walls and attic. And if your home was built before 1980, it's even worse. And right now there's a tax credit up to $1,200 for upgrading your insulation. Call Cardall's Insulation for all the details. 755-5012. That's 755-5012.
How was your drive to school?
Let me tell you, I had to get my iced coffee first. I just can't seem to put it down. My favorite rapper just announced a tour. My phone was buzzing like crazy. I'm so excited. I had to text all my friends right then to talk about it. Then, someone started calling me and...
Let's try that again.
I turned my phone off right away. I never drive distracted.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Election Day edition, Clay Travis and Buck Sexton show. You're not going to want to miss it. We're going to go across the nation, battleground states, battleground guests, and we are going to be imploring all of you, get out and vote in the national nightmare that is Joe Biden, Kamala Harris. Tuesday, very special edition, 3 hours live, Election Day. Come hang with me and Buck.
10 to 1 on News Talk KVNU, 102 FM and 610 AM.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. 2 more items to get to here, election-related. One, a great question from a listener that came in just during the news break there via the Google Chat, or KVNU FTP on Google Chat, by the way, if you want to download that app as a way to communicate with us. And I try to keep an eye on that during the show as best I can. Listener asks, can I still register to vote? And yes, you can. We also have, I forgot to include this in the update from the Lieutenant Governor's office and the elections crew, but we also have an update on Cache Valley, how Cache Valley's turnout so far has looked. So first, to answer a listener's question, yes, you can register to vote still. This is something, Utah has tried a couple of different things with letting 17-year-olds who will be 18 on or before the general election date, letting them register and vote in primaries of that same year and be registered then to vote on the general election date already is a way to increase participation and turnout. But one of the most successful things they've done here in Utah for years now is allowed same-day voter registration, which means registering and casting a ballot at the same time. Now, the way this works, because registrations have to be approved, of course, there are certain rules here in Utah. When you register first, you have to, different than if you're changing your registration but have already registered. When you register for the first time, you have to provide ID, proof of residence, things like that. There's a whole list, by the way, of what qualifies to take in with you to the clerk's office tomorrow if you're going to take advantage of this. And that's at vote.utah.gov. Simply click on register to vote there, and it'll walk you through everything you need to know. But yes, tomorrow, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., the elections center will be open there at the Cache County Fairgrounds Event Center, as we do every year here in Cache Valley. And that will be the voting location tomorrow, starting 7 a.m. until 8 p.m. when polls close. If you are not registered to vote, but you've decided to vote, or if you forgot all about this and you're just hearing about it today and realizing you have no idea if you're registered to vote, if you even have the right address on your previous registration, all of that, you can go in tomorrow, again, with proper identification, and see vote.utah.gov for a list of what qualifies. It's lengthy. There are quite a few options there at vote.utah.gov. But you go in tomorrow with everything you need, and you fill out a voter registration form, and at the same time, they will provide you a provisional ballot. And what that means is you're filling out an actual ballot. But the word provisional means it is reliant on your voter registration being approved. So basically, if you meet the requirements to be a registered voter in Utah and your voter registration is approved, which can take 24 to 48 hours, they say, then once your voter registration is approved, your ballot is counted. So you're voting, it just might be a day or two. Now, that's okay because they don't actually certify the results because sometimes races are so close, there's a recount. Sometimes there's an audit that is requested. Sometimes, if it's really, really close. So they don't certify for about 10 days after the election. So within plenty of time, your registration will have been approved and your ballot will be cast for you, the ballot you fill out tomorrow. So again, that can happen in person only. You can't do this online. The online registration deadline was October 25th. But tomorrow, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the election center, the voting center that will be set up or is being set up as we speak at the Cache County Fairgrounds at the convention center there, you'll be able to go in 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., fill out a voter registration form, and at the same time fill out a provisional ballot. If your registration is approved, if you're qualified to be a registered voter here in Utah, then your ballot that you fill out at the same time tomorrow will be cast. So appreciate that question because I hadn't mentioned that in a while. And finally, I forgot to include this as we were running through the turnout numbers for the state, 46.9% for the state. I forgot to mention where Cache Valley is at. Cache Valley is actually at about 47.2%. So we're a bit higher in percentage of ballots out there that have been cast already. And we'll see if we top the state when all is said and done after the in-person voting happens tomorrow. I hope so. But I hope we just see high turnout statewide. Speaking of this, by the way, I have I'm okay to announce this. I checked with them both, and I have a commitment from both candidates, both the top party or the major party candidates in the United States Senate race. This would be Democrat Carolyn Gleick and Republican John Curtis, current Congressman John Curtis. Whoever wins that United States Senate race here in Utah tomorrow, both have agreed to come on the show. Not the loser, just the winner. So I talked to both campaigns today, and I said, hey, if you win tomorrow, if the results are announced, which will probably be 9, maybe as late as 10 o'clock tomorrow night, we'll have probably a decisive enough vote count reported to call it. And watch CacheValleyDaily.com for that. But and listen, of course, here on KVNU, we'll be doing election updates all night, but as well as ABC News coverage of the presidential race, which is probably going to be a nail biter and possibly not even decided by tomorrow night, but which is not unusual anymore, but still nerve-wracking. But it will be doing live coverage all night tomorrow night with our partners at ABC and jumping in with local updates and more. But again, CacheValleyDaily.com as well. There will be an update as soon as those numbers are posted. And I would guess that in this race, the Senate race, could be wrong, but I would guess the margin of victory for the winner in this race, I don't think it's going to be a close race. So I would guess tomorrow night we know enough about the percentage of votes counted as opposed to outstanding ballots that still need to be counted, and the margin between the two candidates that media organizations, including here at our newsroom, will have probably called a winner. So either way, though, be it Democrat Carolyn Gleick or Republican John Curtis, both have agreed to join us on the show in the first hour on Wednesday. So regardless of how that race turns out, we'll be able to speak with the next United States Senator here in Utah in the first hour on Wednesday's show. So, all right. There you have it. And I promise at this point I'm done with the election updates, but I would encourage everybody to take a second and go read Charlie Shill's story on the election numbers here in Cache County, because there are some other interesting tidbits that he's included there about the makeup of registered voters right now. There are about 42,000 registered Republicans in Cache County right now, about just over 7,000 Democrats, and almost 20,000 local voters consider themselves unaffiliated. There are also, 2,000 members of the Independent American Party, a third party here in Utah that's kind of exclusive here to Utah these days. It used to be in many more states. And then about 1,500 voters collectively declare themselves as Constitution, Green, Libertarian, United Utah, and Utah Forward parties. Although, United Utah Party, I've said this many times on the show, third parties drive me nuts because they show up every 2 years or every 4 years and they whine. Why isn't anyone considering us? Why isn't? And I always say, take third parties seriously when you see them take themselves seriously, when they start campaigning like serious parties, when they start fundraising for their candidates like serious parties, when they start recruiting serious candidates, when they start making it a fight like a serious party or a serious candidate can, then you can take the third party seriously. Until then, they're wasting your time and whining in your ear. But the United Utah Party kind of surprised me this year. I don't think this race is going to be close, but United Utah Party candidate, we had her here on the show, and the Republican candidate in the Utah Attorney General race. And keep in mind, this is a race that, it's the Utah Attorney General's office has been through some things, to say the least. And so you have this different kind of energy there that I think goes beyond maybe party labels. And this isn't to say that I have heard anything from his campaign or him or any other rumors that the Republican candidate, Derek Brown, that he's nervous. And he probably shouldn't be nervous. I will not be at all surprised to see this go exactly as expected, which is the Republican wins with a 50 to 60% margin. But I have to give it to United Utah Party candidate Michelle Quist, because going back to what I said, take third parties seriously when they take themselves seriously. Michelle has been a serious candidate. She has fundraised. She has campaigned. She has made it an aggressive fight. And actually, I'll express it this way. This third party candidate, Michelle Quist, has actually out-campaigned the Democrat in this race. And that should embarrass the Democratic Party, being considered the other major party because of their national standing as a major party. But here in Utah, a third-party candidate for a party that few people belong to. Here in Cache County, again, it's less than 1,500 who are joined up with a collection of third parties, not just 1,500 for one. So very few people registered members of this party. Michelle Quist, who is actually a Republican, she said she ran as a United Utah Party candidate because she wanted it to be a challenge for Derek. Well, she didn't know it was Derek Brown at the time, so it's not personal. Her campaign is basically saying, look, we keep doing the same thing with the Utah Attorney General's office, and we keep having people have to resign in scandal. Let's do something different, which is a decent pitch. Derek, on the other hand, has campaigned, as kind of a stalwart, moderate Republican, though it was a little bit odd to see him right out of the gate endorsing paper ballots, something that the Cox and Henderson campaign and other statewide candidates in the past have said is just a silly idea. It's actually, it's not a good idea for a lot of reasons. I think that was a misstep on his part. I think he paid a little bit for signing on before anyone knew it was going to implode and be tossed by the state Supreme Court for the ballot language that they basically said was too deceptive for voters to really know what they were voting on, written by the Senate President and the Speaker of the House. He signed on in support of that. Michelle was a very outspoken opponent of Amendment D. So I think there have been things that kind of, one forced error and one unforced error, one self-imposed error. But Derek has basically campaigned like a moderate Republican, and I would guess that's going to be appealing to the majority of voters. So this is a race I would predict easily the Republican candidate, Derek Brown, wins. So what I'm saying here again is hats off to Michelle Quist for making, not only as a candidate, but as a third-party candidate, something that is rarely taken seriously here in Utah, with good reason, because it's the third parties that make it easy to not take them serious. Michelle made it serious. I don't know that it spells anything for the future for the party she's running under, the banner she's running under, United Utah. They haven't been able to get a lot of traction anywhere, and they've been around several years now. So I'm not predicting that, but Michelle herself, she made it a race. She kept Derek on his toes. They had a great debate, and as I understand it, they're also friends. So I just wanted to give her a shout-out as a candidate because, I'm pretty hard on the third parties, and whenever I see a third-party candidate actually act like an actual candidate running under the banner of an actual party, I want to be fair and mention it. So we'll be back with more of KVN News for the people right after this.
Talk 610 AM, 102.1 FM, KVNU.
This is James Boyd, Chief Development Officer at CAPSA. At CAPSA, you matter. Domestic and sexual violence impact 1 in 3 women and 1 in 5 men in our community. Despite its prevalence, it remains a hidden crisis affecting our friends, families, and neighbors. When you donate to CAPSA, you're supporting people in your life and across our community. Every donation to CAPSA is a profound statement to survivors that you matter. Join us and show survivors that they matter. Learn more about CAPSA and how you matter at CAPSA.org.
If your saving for retirement approach involves the phrase, "I'll get around to it someday," Edward Jones can help. When it comes to meeting your goals, time can be on your side. And there's no better time than now to get started toward your retirement goals. Edward Jones Financial Advisors can help. Stop by one of the 11 Edward Jones offices in Cache Valley. Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Member SIPC.
Turning my pain into purpose is pretty much what I have done to start this foundation.
In August 2020, after the death of George Floyd, Bridget Floyd and other family members established the George Floyd Memorial Foundation in support of the Black community.
It's going to take more than just us as a foundation. It's going to take the community, the world, to make a change.
Fight for racial justice for the Black community. Learn how at lovehasnolabels.com. Brought to you by Love Has No Labels and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Gordon Deal. Tuesday on This Morning, America's First News. After all the hype, votes of all kinds are finally being counted. We'll have special Election Day coverage as the nation chooses its next president and more. Also, since some states don't begin counting mail-in ballots until Election Day, it could take longer to find out who wins the race for the White House. And the freebies and discounts being offered on Election Day. Tuesday on This Morning, America's First News. From 4 to 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM.
Listener wants to know my prediction for the presidential election. Nuh-uh. I learned my lesson in 2016. That was a bad year for the polling. I'm still fascinated by polling, and I'm still reading a lot about how pollsters have tried to correct for, we've talked about this before. In 2016, what pollsters missed basically was the Electoral College. They had, their margins weren't actually off, but then that was then feeding these polling aggregators who were predicting based on odds. And obviously, in 2016, the odds underdog beat the odds. But you're still talking about odds. When you look at the actual polling, their margins weren't that bad. What they missed is these little pockets of support that ended up very, very important. Like you can read about this now. One county in Pennsylvania, one tiny little section of a House district in Wisconsin. Presidential campaigns are machines, and this is why. And this is also, unfortunately, why they never stop campaigning. But again, I hope we get a break. Regardless of who wins the presidential election tomorrow, I hope everyone just takes a couple of months at least off before the two parties start campaigning for the presidency again. I'm not hopeful, but yeah, no presidential prediction from me. But local races, I'm game to make some predictions there. I'm not going to, but I'm confident in some of these races. It's been an interesting year here in Utah, and part of that has been that we have so many candidates on the ballot here locally. There are a lot of races to be decided tomorrow, so I think that's a very cool thing. It can also lead to some anxiety. I get that, but it'll all be over 8 p.m. tomorrow. Well, 9:10 when we start to get results. The candidates can take a deep breath. Those of you with vested interest in some of these local races can take a deep breath. And for a while, we can pretend everything's normal. And then I'm sure it won't be for some reason. But, yeah. Wrapping up the hour with a little bit of a promo again, because I really want everybody to know how to participate in this. It's a really important thing that's happening. I got word of this just last week that it was official. I'd heard they were looking to do it, but it is official, and there will be this survey going around. And this is an opportunity for Cache Valley to influence, even state housing policy. Make no mistake, the legislature is going to be talking a lot about housing when the 25 session kicks off in January. And they're going to be throwing a lot of money at housing somehow, whether that's renewing or even expanding the starter home fund that they set up, whether that is to make it easier for people to get into starter homes, whether that is something new, I don't know. But it's going to be debated, and they are going to spend some of your money on it, for better or worse. So the smarter that policy can be, the better. And that's what this survey is all about. So coming up next hour, Jess Lucero, good friend of the show, Peyton Reynolds, a student at USU, and Sean Milne, one of the community partners at Bragg right now. They have teamed up to come in today and talk about this upcoming housing attainment survey. The idea behind this is they want your stories. They want to talk to people who have rented or tried to rent, sold or tried to buy housing in Utah, or in Cache Valley specifically. How that experience has gone, the goods, the bads, the success stories, the failures, the pleasants and unpleasants. And they say if we do this, if we get as many stories as we can put this together and better inform housing policy here in Cache County, not only at the city and county level, but again, state policy as well. Our lawmakers can then take that to the Hill. So how it came about, how you can be a part of it, that's next hour.